as I've said a couple times today, all of us in the entertainment and media industry and ecosystem are faced with this tsunami of data and information on a day-to-day basis. One of the things I think that has been an advantage for me is I tend to look for pockets of information and distill it into kind of usable, meals. I imagine the amount of data provided inside an organization like Google, which is at the end of the day a data machine, right, is just daunting and intimidating, and can really almost prevent you before you start from investigating and gaining insight. Two questions. How do you manage that? How does one manage, especially from within an organization like that? Are there secrets to it that Google understands on managing the amount of information that the rest of us need to catch up on? And then secondarily, what can you learn? What do you see? I'm not asking for any trade secrets here, but what do you see from a patterns and trends standpoint that speaks to where the consumer is headed, what the consumer is wanting, where their minds are going, and how to make those correct investments for publishers to make sure that they're whether it's discoverability or aggregation or whatever it is, that they're meeting the needs of the consumer and then meeting their own business goals.
So I'll come back to that one, 'cause that's a good question, and we're pretty hyper-focused on the last bit of that question, and I'll give you a couple examples. On the information overload, it's not a Google problem. I heard you ask this to some other folks up here too, and I was interested, to their tips and tricks. And I've said this for years now. Time is probably the most precious resource when you get to a certain point in your career, personal life as well as professional life, where it's just like there's just too much happening. People ask all the time. My kids ask, "What do you want for your birthday?" I'm like, "Just time. Just get me a couple hours free." I used to joke. I used to travel a lot more.
I wait for the plane ride.
Yeah, and I would joke, if I could just fly backwards around the world. I used to, fly back from Asia and make up a whole day, and it was like, wow, that's a hack. If you want to talk about life hacks, like fly backwards and, stock up all your presentations and documents. Like I said, it's not a Google thing. Yes, there's treasure troves of information and dashboards, et cetera, that you can dig into. But beyond Google, more generically, there's no shortage of information. I think being smart about what is duplicative, and I try to stockpile. I'm a hoarder with respect to articles that I get on a daily basis. I try to scan and dedupe things so that I'm not reading the same thing sort of multiple times. But I organize my time as best I can and make the time to get through that information. And I'd say it's a healthy balance between industry information and then juxtaposing that against our data internally and what we might be looking at. You can very quickly, at a place like Google or at a place like Netflix, get sucked into an echo chamber of your data, your insights, how your employees consume.
That's a real danger for everybody, right?
It's a massive danger in many industries. I've been in media and entertainment for too long now, but it can be on the programming side because you start programming for yourselves, right? And even building the product, you build it for how you and your kids behave. Yeah, in Silicon Valley, and it's like, is this indicative of who's buying our TVs? It's not, right? So making sure you find the balance between internal and external, I think, for those trends, and then coming to those trends and making sure we're investing for those users and our programmers, because there's two major constituents that we're building, our TVs for. A couple of things we're working on. So we've long believed that ingesting these catalogs and then using signals around what you're doing on the device to help inform what you should do next or might want to do next is going to be sort of the foundation of the best experience. And it's going to help surface content from a variety of providers, helps the providers, and it's going to obviously make a really, really strong experience, personalized experience for the user. We still believe that, and we're still seeing that. But one of the things that I think we're sort of evolving to is also, we see what you do on the device. That's a very, what your TV would look like only from that lens is probably very reflective of what's going on in your living room. It may not even be just you, because it could be multiple users. But we also know that you're probably interacting with some of these surfaces or services on other surfaces as well. And this gets out of the echo chamber. They're probably not all Google or Android services. You might be using an iPhone to interact. So the partners also have a perspective on what they think you should be watching next. So we're working with them in a way that's a little less binary, where it's like us presenting to you what we think you should have, or you go into the app and then say Netflix presents to you what they think you should have. And we're trying to have more of a blend where partners can help inform some of those recommendations alongside our own. And that would be sort of the perfect nirvana, right? Where it's like if you could almost fact check the recommendations that you're going to make on the platform with every partner real time before you make them, and say, do you think Evan would really like this? Like, we think he would. Do you think he would? And it comes back and it's a thumbs up. Like, that's probably going to hit, right? Versus it being, actually he finished that, 2 weeks ago. Here's the next thing. So that's sort of the next wave of our collaboration with all the partners on the platform.